Hey Jai. Welcome back to another episode. This is Hey Jai on IMS Studios. Um, yeah, is this a podcast or is this just a show? I don't know yet. Still working the details out of that. Actually, I think we'll have some more insight on that this weekend at the time of this recording. But welcome back to another episode. Said I was going to get a little bit more consistent for you guys. So, have a fun topic today, or I guess the theme isn't fun. You know how everything is, but it's gonna relate to some current events that I think are fun to talk about. So sit back and enjoy. Remember, subscribe to the YouTube channel that you see scrolling at the bottom of the ticker below. IMS Studios in all caps, IMS, and follow the Instagram page _IMS Studios. Same thing on Threads as well as Twitter. So with that, the theme of today's episode is going to be on free will. So it's a lot of current events that I think can derive from free will. Just kind of looking at a lot of people's actions. Just kind of pondering to see how people are using their free will these days, and how that free will doesn't necessarily mean freedom of consequence, right? And how some of those consequences affect others. So first, let me give you a definition because I guess that's what we're gonna be doing now. I'm gonna have it on the screen as well. But free will is defined by Webster as the voluntary choice or decision, or freedom of humans to make choices that are not determined by prior causes or by divine intervention. I think free will is one of the most important things that we have as humans. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with our intellect, the ability to make decisions that aren't just based on instinct. I think those are the things that make us, at the top of the food chain, that separate us from just basic animalistic nature that have caused us to evolve, not just biologically but societally as well. Using that free will, having the ability to do so, the ability to think for ourselves. That's a big theme on this channel. Even whenever we were doing the NIT pod, the biggest thing was think for yourselves. So what I try to do with these themes, try to present a theme and just kind of not straddle the fence, but just give different viewpoints of it, but allowing everybody to draw their own conclusion. Right. So a couple of things that have kind of been around in the news as of late that I think that have led to a reaction to kind of see how people are actually using their free will. I think are going to be a little bit fun to talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about is Iceman, right? One of my highest performing videos was talking about the beef between Drake and Kendrick. I think every content creator at the time was milking that. But Iceman is finally coming out, or at least we have a release date for it. I believe at this time it's May 15th. And the rollout that he did, I thought was pretty cool. The latest rollout, rather, I thought was pretty cool. He put a whole bunch of blocks of ice in Canada and had people, had the date hidden under that. If you melt the blocks of ice, you break the blocks of ice and stuff like that. All right. And so a bunch of fans, streamers, just people just going out there, just typical fans of Drake, just people trying to have a moment, going out there, destroying the block of ice. Came out, came out with the date, May 15th. Okay, cool. A lot of people are excited about that. Where this translates into free will is because some of the conversation that's come from it during the time of the beef, a lot of people, if you pick a side for fun, cool. But I think a lot of people, or people with powerful voices, rather, I think they use that to get a lot of shit off about how they felt about these individuals, right? Whether you were on the Drake side or the Kendrick side, you can see, like academics clearly has some shit to get off about TDE and Kendrick. A lot of people had to get some shit off about Drake, which I think that was a little bit louder considering that Drake lost significantly, right? And so now that you see him releasing a new project after this time, it's not the first project he released, but the most significant one since that time of the beef. You're hearing a lot of people, a lot of those same people say that, yeah, I'm excited to hear what says it, blase, 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 but they're music critics. They should be excited to hear it, right? But a lot of the fanfare, a lot of people who did take a side with Drake, um, are not harassing, but I guess the online version of harassment. Um, Telling them stay on that side. You can't be excited for it. You don't need to listen to it. Send threats and insults. Yada yada yada. All right. And so one person in particular that talked about this was Ebro. Shout out to Ebro Rosenberg, all of them. I listen to them sometimes. And Ebro was like, this is hip hop, right? You could pick sides in the beef. This is hip hop. It wasn't nothing personal. It was just talking about the music. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I remember Ebro saying that Drake was a cancer to music. I remember, for lack of a better word, lack of a better phrase, he was meat riding Kendrick whenever that beef was going down. So it seemed like he had some like pent up stuff versus Drake. Right. And so now him being excited, his fans are saying that nah, you can't be the one on that side. And how this kind of relates to free will is the things that you put out, that's something that you have the freedom to do, right? Nobody can take away you putting out your thoughts, you expressing your thoughts. Just like, all of our thoughts and opinions and things are personal. The minute that we express those, we set those up to be critiqued. With Drake's music, he set himself up to be critiqued because it's public. In the beef, with the rollout, with Iceman, how he carries himself, how he presents himself to the public, right? The same thing goes with those that criticize him. Once that opinion becomes content, once that becomes public, once that becomes fodder, right? It can be critiqued on that. You had the free will to do that. And so a consequence of you taking a firm stance on that led to, I wouldn't say backlash, but the insults, the people flooding your mentions with it. Oh, you can't looking for it. And honestly, him being a large content creator, as with several other people who were either with or against the Drake side of things, they're gonna make a lot of money off of people wanting to hear their opinions on it. Whether people are looking to automatically disagree ahead of time, ready to call them backpedalers, or if they want to double down and let's say the album's trash, right? All those things are there are benefits to that as well. But I don't like it whenever people try to cry victim, or even the people that are hurling the insults or policing that are kind of overdoing it, in terms of, hey, this is just fun, it's just entertainment. But they're deciding to take a strong stance. They're deciding to use their free will to be emotionally invested, to be mentally invested, to put a lot of bandwidth into this, right? Now, do I think that's the majority of people? Absolutely not. I'd like to have a little bit of faith in humanity to where a lot of those thoughts and people are using their free will to not just be Drake stands. But I think it's a loud enough group that's out there, the whether the stands, whether the haters, whether the pundits talking about it. I think it's a loud enough group out there to where it's worth warranting the discussion. And I think that whenever you do use your free will, and to be super invested into things like that, there is a consequence that comes with that. And we're gonna touch on consequences a little bit later. But I think that everything has a consequence. Free will is freedom of choice. Freedom of choice is not freedom of consequence. And I think that the more responsibility that you have, that consequence reaches further, that consequence becomes more intensified. It's not just a result of the action or the way that you express your free will, but it's also a result of your responsibility, your reach, the things that you care for. Right. But that's just a little fun snippet. So speaking of people, speaking of people being stands and fans of things, I'm a big Patriots fan. So this next subject where people were using their free will, I want to talk about Mike Vrabel and the Diana Rossini. I probably shouldn't have put cheating up there, but I mean it's up there now. I want the Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini scandal that's going on. So about a couple of weeks ago, at the time of this recording, there were some pictures that were released of Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini at a resort hotel in Arizona. Now you can kind of take that hit or miss, of course, of how they were pictured, and those going to be on the screen. Of course, how they were pictured, you can kind of look at it away. But it was them two by the pools, them two holding hands, them two hugging. things like that. But in Arizona, those are the times of the NFL league owners meetings. Those were also, you know, they reporter head coach. She's been covering the NFL as long as I've been alive, damn near. And Mark Vrabel has been a prominent player and a coach. So of course, it's not surprising that he would have some kind of relationship with it. Initially, they came out there saying that they were in a group setting and they were just friends. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As the story has progressed, more and more pictures have come out of Rossini. People have pulled up old tweets and segments and things like that. Gonna have them all over the screen. Tweets and segments of Rossini just killing her husband, right? Taking little jabs, little shots and stuff like that. To where if you pair those things in the vacuum, probably just like, oh, it's just content. But pairing that with the accusations, now it becomes something bigger. So as of yesterday, Mike Vrabel finally spoke to the media addressing it. Not really addressing it, but saying that he had some difficult conversations with his family and that, he, regrets to be a distraction, and it's reported that he's gonna miss a part of the draft to attend family counseling and things like that. To be an example, at this point, Diana Rossini has been resigned. You could say the option, of course, to be fired, but officially she resigned from her job at the Athletic. And by the time I'm recording this, they just had two drops from the New York Post. One of Mark Vrabel and Diana Rossini allegedly kissing. Another of them kicking it at a casino. Back whenever Mike was in Tennessee. I mean, apparently they had an affair going on right before she got married. All throughout now, her oldest child is named Michael. It's a whole mess, right? So that's kind of breakdown of it. Uh, it's not funny, but it's kind of just like scandalous. It's salacious, rather, right? And it goes back to that free will thing. The way that she chose to speak about her husband, whether that was for fodder, whether that was for jokes, whether those were, true feelings disguised as jokes out, she used that out there. And now she's being attacked for it because of a slip up, right? Or it may not even be a slip up. The rumor is a private eye that got the pictures. But, you know, being unfaithful allegedly, right? I don't know the whole marital situations. Um, Even just crossing that line with a quote unquote coworker or somebody that's in the same industry as you. Those are all examples of using your free will and those having particular consequences that bleed into you in various areas. I think Colin Cowherd spoke about this um, on his podcast that was very well thought out. He was saying that while Mike Vrabel only has a moral dilemma, because however you feel about cheating or whatever, um, that's an individual moral compass, right? Whenever I got the guys on, we'll have a whole cheat episode. I think we actually have an NIT episode called the Cheat Cast or something like that. But for Diana Rossini, because she was a reporter who was a had trusted sources. She was respected in the league. She had a vote on the media awards, like Coach of the Year, MVP, things like that. It created an ethical dilemma because you kind of have a bias, um, or a perceived bias now that you're essentially romantically involved with somebody in the profession, right? So she didn't take the time to, I guess, assess the consequences. Maybe that's what the theme should have been. It should have been consequences, action and consequences, right? But I'm gonna stick with free will because it's still people doing what they want to do. All right. Um, Now her family's on Jump Street. Her husband's on Jump Street. Their children, uh, is all on Front Street. I'm sure it's an awkward situation for all of them, because it's a national story now. It's not just, oh, she was messing with the neighbor and it's just a little family secret. Hush, hush. No, it's a national story now. And those are things that you have to take into consideration whenever you are using your free will. It's trickled down into, you know, for the actual sports aspect of it, to where Mike Rabel might get an investigation by the league, right? Um, it could affect, you got Eagles fans, nobody likes them. I'm playing. But you got Eagles fans saying that, oh, she was pushing the story to get AJ Brown traded and so on discourse. It's a whole trickle down effect. That leads to consequences of just two people using their free will, depending on who you ask, irresponsibly. Although a 6-year affair, it seemed like neither of them really had a plan to do if they actually got caught. Uh, so shout out to them. I guess I hope that they kind of redeem themselves. Mark Vrabel, Diana essentially denied everything. Mark Vrabel just threw her under the bus, man. He straight up said that, look, some regrettable choices, had some tough conversations. He didn't just come out and say exactly what it was, but you can put A and B together, right? So, whenever you do have those things that do come up, I would say in terms of the consequences of that, of using your free will, like I said, your responsibilities are impacted, right? And when I say responsibilities, I mean that, like, people and things that you're responsible for. Him as a head coach, him as a husband, him as a father, um, probably a patriarch of his family. That shame because of his decision making, it trickles down to all of them. Same thing with her because she's a public figure. That now her husband's gonna be questioned. People might go harass her husband. People might go poke fun at her kids and things like that, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to take cheating to it, but I think anytime that you make a decision and as you get every decision that you make rather has consequences. All actions have consequences. Just because you as an individual can live with the consequences of that, of how it affects you, it also affects several things that are involved with you. It affects your surroundings. It could affect your occupation. It could affect your company. It could affect your family, right? I think a lot of people don't consider the consequences of things whenever they are using their free will. Now, I do think that more people should use their free will. I'm not an advocate of just being, you know, uh, buttoned up totalitarian, I believe that's the right word, society, but I also believe that they are unspoken rules or unspoken codes of conduct that I think have developed over time that allow us to be a society. We aren't savages anymore. We aren't Neanderthals. We've evolved past that on a social level. And I think that our ability to have access to information, our ability to have access to experience, has shown that you know you're responsible for your choices. I would say even now, so more than ever. A lot of people like to blame several things on their choices: environmental factors, emotions. I'm sure if you ask the way Diana Rossini was talking, and like I said, you'll see some of the tweets on the video. The way she used to just throw little shots at her husband, she might have emotionally not have been happy. But now, because of what you did, it affected your husband, your children, Frable, anybody who knew, all participants and non-participants in this as well, because you didn't value the consequences of it. There's one last kind of current event. This is a little bit later. This has been going on for a little minute, but the Gucci and Pooh Shiesty thing, right? And I think this is probably the best example of consequences that go into it, right? So, Pooh Shiesty was arrested a couple of weeks ago for robbing Gucci Man. Short version, right? Hit him at gunpoint, robbed him, a couple of executives to and forced himself to get out of his contract. They got caught up because a lot of people that was with Pooh Shiesty at the time, outside of Pooh Shiesty, who was on house arrest, on parole, went there with his ankle monitor, with his father, drove from Memphis to I believe Dallas, with his ankle monitor, with his father, with his goons, and they basically robbed a whole bunch of people. And a lot of people that they were with just flashed off some of the stuff they was robbing. They was flashing off chains, rings, stuff like that. All right, on the internet. And this goes back into those consequences situations, right? Who should I see just got out of jail. First day out, still jumping off one of the bigger songs of the year. I don't know his contract. I don't know his business. I know that in hip hop folklore legend, that the whole, oh yeah, you go tie up the record executive to get out your contract. go there on some street shit. That works. It probably doesn't work that well in 2026. I'm gonna be honest with you. Or I think if you are gonna do it, you gotta do it a little bit more tact, right? One of the people that Gucci was riding with was his father. And this is where those free will conversation things kind of come into play because a good amount of people now are saying that, you know, why he first the first reaction is, man, you successful rapper, you made it out, you know, house arrest, why'd you do something so stupid? Right. And then people go into, well, look at his parents, look at the environment that he grew up in. It's part of the lifestyle that, even in FDO, even in FDO, he says that I'm the shooter and the CEO. Once you get the CEO status, you shouldn't be the shooter anymore. All right. That's just my opinion. But they said, look at his parents. His dad, street dude, the one that rode with him. His mom on the internet popping it, talking about that, oh yeah, she raised the real slime. And not trying to say nothing about his mama, but when I see other people's parents, I thank God for the people that raised me, even just a little bit more. Right. And so some people are saying that he didn't really have a chance, but he's 25. He's 25. He just got out of jail for doing some street shit. So I don't think that's an excuse anymore, especially in this day and age. I think that your environmental factors aren't nearly as important. And it's just my thoughts. Aren't nearly as important as an excuse for making poor decisions as people try to put them out to be. Because I think that we are in the highest age of information. To me, for evolution and advancement, the two biggest components are uh, information and application. I think that we, like I said, as a society, have gathered enough information and have applied enough things to put in place to where you know better. It doesn't matter where you come from. I'm not gonna say it doesn't matter, but I would say for him to get to his position, he had enough resources to be able to look at other avenues, other areas, other decisions to know that that was not a smart decision. I know what his parents seem like, and for them that might have been a little bit different. But at 25 and the age of the internet, where you know that X, Y, and Z is dead wrong, I'm sure you probably seen folks go to jail. You probably seen folks squander opportunities. You're the one that made it out. You're the breadwinner of your family now. Yeah, I'm not using it. That's not an excuse anymore. How you're raised should not hold bearings on you at 25, because at that point you know right from wrong. It might even be younger than that for some things. That's just like whenever they find like the little white kids who said the N word on Twitter. And, oh, he was only 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, I didn't need to be 13 to know saying something racist is wrong, right? People are smart enough, right? People are outside of, they have access to societies, they have access to thoughts, they have access to people, they have access to shared experiences from other people outside of themselves because of the information that we have access to. So for him to still do that and not even care about the consequences, that's what it was. I think it was a sense of recklessness. And I think that's the one of the biggest things that you have to kind of watch with free will is that there's a level of, you almost don't want people to have it in a sense. That's gonna sound crazy in the clip. That's not, let me walk that back. It's not that you don't want people to have free will, but I think that there are so many things in place now that the way people use their free will is kind of like it's almost no excuse. I think the consequences are laid out for pretty much everybody past the age of 13 for how certain stuff is going to go. I don't think it's a lack of information or a lack of knowledge. I think that it's time to start pinning it that a lot of people just really don't care. And I think this is one example of it. I think that if everybody that we listed, or every topic that we kind of went through, it was an example of people who possibly should have known the consequences and just didn't care and now are acting like, or they have people acting on their behalf of, man, I didn't expect it to be this bad, or scrambling around it, or, oh, I didn't know it could touch X, Y, and Z. But honestly, at the end of the day, your consequences are the result of your choices. I think that we all have enough access to information. I think that before you make a decision, before you exercise that free will, just stop and take a second and think for yourself. Think about everything that you touch, everything that's affected by you, and everything that's affected by, um, everything that you're responsible for, everything that you have influence over, everything that you care about. Just when some of these decisions, just say, hey, is this going to make sense for me? Is this going to have a negative effect on this? Or even a positive effect, or whatever effect that it has, then ask yourself, okay, can I live with that? So you got to do it. Well, that's all I got on free will. It's been Hey Jai. Again, subscribe to the YouTube. Check out the Instagram. I am in studios. Tell me which part that you liked. Leave a comment, leave a like, share it around. Um, More shows coming. Like I said, I'm getting back more consistent, but Hey Jai is my baby. So
What?
definitely have to make the first 2 shows of 2026 be Hey Jai's, but we're gonna have some more stuff going on. And still gonna have that video of kind of like where I'm at in life right now, why you see a different setup, why it's gonna be different stuff happening, gonna have more guests on and things like that. So I'm Jai, and I still don't know how to sign out without being awkward, but peace.